Steve and I first started working together in 1995, mid-1995. He'd been at the chamber probably about a year, so I volunteered, as many of us started in this room as volunteers for the chamber.
So I met Steve in '94. He was leaving Crane, obviously, and was looking to settle in Bloomington. And so I was the membership director at the chamber at the time that he came on board.
And I know Steve from the chamber. In fact, in May 1st of 2000, Steve hired me to work at the chamber.
Steve and I spent a lot of time together because my term as a board member coincided with his tenure as a staff member.
And I came to know Steve about 25 years ago when he became the commanding officer of Naval Surface Warfare Center Crane.
How I know Steve best is because he was a good friend. And while at the Chamber of Commerce, we were there simultaneously, and he was such a generous co-worker. We just became really good friends through our association at work.
Steve was one of the first people I met when I came to Bloomington. I was assigned to the Bloomington campus in actually September 5th of 2001 as the interim chancellor. And one of the first people who called and asked if he could come and greet me and meet me was Steve Howard.
I think the most notable thing about Steve is his vision. A lot of people talk about, Steve's leadership. I mean, so much happened during those chamber years, and it was incredibly formative for me. But I also think that he served as a change agent for the chamber and moving it forward with a lot of vision and a lot of passion.
He was a true and loyal friend. He was a great friend. He was also a visionary in ways that I don't think we really knew what being a visionary meant in Bloomington. He brought that engineer's mindset to our community and saw things that we didn't see.
He was always there. He would listen and give me advice when I asked for it, and just be a presence in my life that was very important to me.
Steve was a really confident individual and used the board as a sounding vehicle or a sounding board. He had spent a lot of time doing his homework, doing the research, looking at both sides of any issue, and when he brought something to the board that he thought was important, it was hard not to agree with him.
Steve was just a terrific gentleman and also a fabulous communicator. Steve could share a whole lot of information in a very understandable way, both as a speaker and as a writer. There's so many articles and so forth that he's written over the years that remain as timely today as when he wrote them.
Steve came across as being very caring. If you knew Steve, you knew he had a presence, and that presence could fill a room. And I think Steve knew that, and he dialed that back from time to time to engage other people and bring out the best in them.
And Steve Howard and Linda Williamson came to my office, which was then still at Westbury, and came out, sat down with me, welcomed me to Bloomington, talked to me about the challenges that they thought that Ivy Tech had in the community. They were very warm, very welcoming, and that was the beginning of a wonderful relationship with Steve, and certainly the beginning of his tremendous support for the Ivy Tech Community College campus.
And he pushed things forward because of his love for the community and because of his interest in wanting to see positive change for what was around him.
He made it possible for people to see why it was important that we look beyond the city, beyond the county, because we couldn't exist in a vacuum. And isn't that the engineer's way, right? To see all the parts moving together.
I certainly think about his integrity, intelligence, thoughtfulness. He was my friend, my mentor, and to me, he was one of a kind.
Regardless of whether it was a community activity or a personal activity or a career activity, he was very passionate, and he was passionate about getting the results that he thought was best for the community.
Steve was a good friend, an extremely strong supporter of my efforts here professionally, and we greatly miss him.
And he finally said, I'll call you get together for a cup of coffee. And soon came to realize Steve was basically saying goodbye. And he just a wonderful person. He cared about his family, he cared about people, he cared about his community, and he cared about his country. A real model for all of us to emulate. So to Steve, my friend, my commanding officer, my CEO and president of our chamber, fair winds and following seas.